Viewers inside the country and around the globe, hello and welcome to SATV's International Affairs Special Edition. My name is Rashid Kanchon as your host, and I have a terrific panel today. I have former State Minister for Education. He's very vocal on his particular issues, Dr. Anamo Ehsanul Haq Milan. Welcome, sir. And we have our regular international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Panto. I'm sure he has a lot of breaking news and lot of comments on international issues going on. And from Washington, we have former ambassador and peace negotiator Norman Floyd Barnes. I'll start with two breaking news. Breaking news number one: President Donald Trump has issued a 50-day ultimatum to Vladimir Putin to reach a peace deal. Otherwise, the US will impose several and severe tariffs, potentially 100%. I repeat, ladies and gentlemen, 100% tariffs on countries dealing with Russia. I mean on Russian allies. On the other side, the US and NATO are conveying new military support pipelines, including Patriot air defense systems funded by European allies. It is another breakthrough in Russia-Ukraine war. Let me start from our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Panto. What are the other issues you are going to pick for today's discussion? Because I see a lot of issues is going on around the globe.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kanchan. It's lovely to have Mr. Ehsanul Haq Milan back in our studio. Of course, good morning to Norman Floyd Barnes in America. We touched on the 100% secondary tariff on Russia. That remains as the top story for today. However, I would like to add on that Ukraine says it had eliminated Russian agents suspect of killing an intelligence officer who was called Mr. Ivan Voronich in Kiev. And the Ukrainian security forces have cracked down on the Russian agents. Alongside this, the Secretary General of UN, Antonio Guterres, had said that he would propose for the two-state solution and for an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Palestine conflict as well. And alongside, we have Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in his week-long visit in China. Of course, Australia belongs to the AUKUS trilateral security partnership. It's between Australia, United Kingdom and the US. So they're trying to balance strategic and economic ties with China to see, and it would be the first of its kind in recent days where a white nation or where a Western nation, if you would say, is meeting their Chinese counterparts as well.
And thank you very much. At the end of the show, we will again discuss the 15th July, what happened last year. Outrages has come after the speech and press briefing by the Prime Minister on 14th with some controversial remarks we will discuss in the last part of the program. Let us connect with Norman. Norman, good morning. I know it's 4 a.m. in Eastern Standard Time in Washington time, and thank you very much for joining, for your enthusiastic contribution to SATV. My first question is for you. Is the current US trade policy signaling to return an economic nationalism? And what implications does this have for developing economics or economies like Bangladesh? Mr. Norman, the whole world is watching what Donald Trump is trying to impose on tariffs issues.
Good morning from Washington, D.C. And yes, the whole world is watching. The whole nation is watching. I'm watching. The impact of these tariffs and on the economy is going to be significant. It is going to force countries like Bangladesh to reconsider their strategies. They have to maybe realign themselves with other countries, regional partners, and do what we call a workaround. The tariffs, as you mentioned, yesterday was 30%. Now is up to 500%, whatever percent. So we are now in a trade war, official trade war. Russia is tightening up their position. North Korea this morning just announced that they are going to support Russia unconditionally providing with another 30,000 troops on land, in addition to trade and other commerce things are happening. So we're now the pressure is on up more on economic development stuff. So people need to look out at what's going on, particularly, and I'm going to talk about Bangladesh. Bangladesh is in a very unique situation. You have a great textile and garment industry. You need to utilize that. You need to make deals with United States, uh, China, and other places like this, so you can position yourself. Because when this shift changes, there's going to be workaround. Tariffs in the United States is going to increase everything going up, and we over here need a way of going on. An idea would be have a U.S. company base itself in Bangladesh, so they can do a workaround and also position themselves. There have to be compliance issues. Regulations have to be up to Western standards, but this is a unique opportunity right now.
Mr. Norman, you said this is an unique opportunity. We have a former minister here who was responsible for developing the education department. He was a state minister for education. I just want to take his take on this particular. President Donald Trump has reintroduced sweeping 30% tariffs on imports from country like Mexico, country like EU even, and he has imposed 37% on Bangladesh, Vietnam. By the way, Vietnam has negotiated into 25%, Bangladesh has negotiated 2% only in 35. But there are other 16% which includes 51% on Bangladeshi goods into USA. As a policymaker, you have experience how to deal this kind of situation. Mr. Minister, my question is, Mr. Norman says it is an opportunity. How do you see this?
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for having me on board. And Mr. Shanto and Norman from Washington. Good morning, Norman. I feel you were having
good morning, sir.
You will have a good day today. You see, if I consider all this question in a package, I see it's different way. Well, Mr. Trump, he's looking in his way America first. And as a Bangladeshi, I look Bangladesh first. So this is our competition. What Trump wants, that the trade imbalance with Bangladesh and USA should be regulated. Means that deficit should not be that big. 4 billion we export. Instead of that, we import only 2.2 billion. So there's a nearly 6 billion gap. Well, why all of a sudden Trump wants it? That's the question comes in our mind. Does it mean that he's going to impose exactly 35%? I don't think so. What Norman said it's opportunity. We all know threat becomes opportunity. So this is a threat. It might turn to opportunity, and we will do that. Well, if they raise the taxes, who pays it? The consumers pays it. End of the day, consumers pay it. Does it affect to the American citizen? Of course, it affects to the American citizen. Can they buy high cost this kind of goods? No, they cannot. Is it going to give them subsidy like in the corona time? No. But Trump will make a huge earnings in his treasury, taking the tax tariff value high. So he's going to raise his fund, but instead of that, he might spend in other direction. Not he's going to give subsidy to the people to buy it, because it's not an essential commodity. Well, in this case, why Trump want it? That's the major question comes. Well, if we talk about the organization, which one is built in 1948, there's a general agreement on tariff and trade. That's how it started. In 1995, it became World Trade Organization. So does he violate the World Trade Organization aim? Of course he is. He is. Because the aim of World Trade Organization is not that all of a sudden you hike your taxes, you value your tariffs, and you put other country in jeopardy. Let's say we have a huge government industry. All of a sudden, whatever he likes he is doing a tariff war, but we are fighting for our food and our rehabilitations, our employment. over 6 million people will be unemployed. So can he do that? No. The World Trade Organization will not going to allow it, but he is doing it. And the answer, he simply said that we are doing it for our security. Let's see, the main tariff war, I believe China versus US, that's the thing. We know a word, it calls rules of origin. So if we talk a product made in Bangladesh, but Trump is looking, what is the rules of origin? The rules of origin of this product means we are only cutting and manufacturing. Other commodity are importing from others. So let's make a shirt. The whole shirt, the cloth is coming from China. And we are taking, let's say, 5% of the total cost, sewing and manufacturing. So who is getting the most benefited? The China. Is it going to give all the leverage to the China? They will import the clothes from China and we'll do the cutting and manufacturing and we'll get a little commission and the Chinese getting the most of the benefit. So he's not going to let it do that.
Yeah, they will sell their products.
Basically, who is making money? China is making money. So Trump is looking with his microscopic eye. You have to understand that he is a businessman. He's not a politician. He looks the business. His aim is to build America first. The domestic industry in United States, day by day, they are not working because you know that their living cost is high. Per hour salary, Norman will bail me out, maybe $17 per hour. So are they going to make a manufacture RMG? No, they are not going to do it. He must import it from others.
Sir, according to you, I find a different picture on this, that China is going to be benefited and American citizens are going to pay more. This is what I understand according to you. And Trump is making money for his treasury as he committed that he will make America great again.
Yeah, but Norman says it's an opportunity. I believe it's an opportunity. Because who's going to supply the same chain RMG better than us? Because it's a labor-intensive product. We have a much more cheaper labor than all other nations.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, he's going to do that like in India we'll have the more leverage or Vietnam will have the more leverage. We have enough time to negotiate this thing.
Right,
but
sir.
it will give us an opportunity for us, I believe that.
Sir, I want to take one answer from Mr. Shamsul Alam Pantho. He has a deep study on these tariff issues. Last 1 week we are talking about. My question is, Mr. Norman says that this is an opportunity for a country like Bangladesh. Dr. Milan says this is an opportunity for Bangladesh. But we see governments, leaders in our country from BGMA, they are very scared. They are blaming government for failing the negotiations with the Americans. How do you see as an entrepreneur, as a commentator and as a journalist?
Well, thank you, Mr. Kanchal. Let me first add on, we were talking, Norman was mentioning the RMG industry of Bangladesh. And of course, our top 300 companies to invest in America and whether the top 300 companies in America would invest in us. That is, of course, a relationship that should be built in the coming days. And not just that, if you look at RMG, a close competitor to Bangladesh in that industry would be Vietnam. Every now and then we see both of these two countries focusing on their RMG exports elsewhere. But say for the current tariff, it's at 35%, while Vietnam has negotiated that to a bracket of 20 to 25%. What that will do is, if you take a product like a pair of jeans or a piece of clothing, a t-shirt, for example, it would become at the consumer end a cheaper option would be the Vietnamese apparel in comparison to Bangladesh, as the rate of the tariff is high. And that is where the leaders of our BGMEA is also concerned that in the upcoming days, our RMG industry in competition with other RMG industries in other countries would face a shock due to this tariff. So this is why most of them are scared. And not only so, Donald Trump, even yesterday in a NATO, with the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, he also mentioned that he used trade as the means to stop an escalatory war between India and Pakistan. So Donald Trump's diplomacy, definitely trade is one of those issues. Of course, we still have time up until August 1st when it was supposed to kick in. So let's see if this pure competition can be met with other nations like Vietnam and Cambodia.
Right, we have to see and wait what's go on this particular. Let us come to the Russia-Ukraine war. As I said in the breaking news part, that President Donald Trump has issued a 50-day ultimatum to Vladimir Putin to reach a peace deal. Otherwise, the US will impose severe tariffs, potentially 100% tariffs on countries dealing with Russia. This is a new beginning with Russia. This is a new threat for Russia and its allies. Mr. Norman, would you please let us know, is it a second step to revive the Russia-Ukraine escalation into an intensive way, or is it a step to shut down this war?
Yes. My response to that question is actually kind of unique. I'm going to say we're looking for an escalation. The Russians are not listening to the USA in terms of policies, sanctions. For them, it doesn't mean anything. They're seeking a workaround, meaning they're making deals with Africa, Middle East, other parts of the world to not have to deal with the United States. They want to basically dry the United States out, put them in a what we call a economic island. They be by themselves and the rest of the world. We have to look at the BRICS. The BRICS has over 26 countries involved with that now. They're currently working on ways to establish their own trade and commerce. The United States impact is going to be less impactful as we move on. They're looking at alternatives. Everybody's looking at alternative routes, alternative trade rates, and whatever like that. So even though the sanctions are going to be severe, but it's not going to be enough to stop their plan. They have a plan for global change, global domination, and we have to readjust our strategy regarding that because they're not listening to what we're doing.
Very loud and clear from Norman. You live in Washington, you speak like the people of Washington and we see the vibe from the President Trump's in your voice. Never mind, don't take it personally. This is a conversation. I want to come to our ex-minister. Over 130 drones and multiple missiles strikes launched by Russia recently, and suddenly it was stopped almost. And the US resupplying Ukraine with Patriot missiles, which is a very powerful missiles. Are we seeing an irreversible escalation in the Russia-Ukraine war? I want to do this question to Dr. Milon. You see, last 1 month, we are watching the diplomatic failures in different fronts. Now, the war again started.
Re-escalation.
Re-escalation.
If I address this question, the previous question, I want to say a few more points. Let's say Trump has something others in his mind also. The government bike and plane, arms equipment, warhead, all those things to fill up the gap of the trade imbalance. He might look for that. He might look for renegotiating Indo-Pacific or something political agenda. It's a package deal. It's not a simple thing. So there's a lot of things inside it, and he's playing all the cards, whatever he can play. He's a smart player. So let's go to the next question, re-escalation of this war. Of course, the re-escalation will be there. You know why? Because Russia is not going to let other people come to his neighbor. He wants to control his neighbor. Ukraine is his neighbor. And Ukraine is going to the NATO. Who likes it? He doesn't like it. And he wants to be again the dipolar world hero. And he's going to continue this thing. In the meantime, Trump threat is very much cognizable because, he threatened for 50 days, if you don't come to the peace deal, then what I'm going to do? I will put all these NATO countries as a sanction, those who are going to buy fuel from Russia. You see, this is a big threat. And he said, yes, of course, I'll give them the arms and ammunition. And they're not going to give directly soldiers because they don't want to involve in direct war, which doesn't seem so good in this time of the world. The world is very much excited state now, Israel, Gaza, and all those things. So here, Russia wants to play his card and United States wants to play their card. But this time I think NATO and United States are in a good hand, and perhaps they will go for the peace negotiation if Trump, what he said, if he does mean that.
But sir, Donald Trump says he's very frustrated on Putin. He says clearly to the journalist that Putin doesn't want to end this combat operation into Ukraine. He wants to keep a long time, prolonged war with NATO indirectly. He says it to the sir, I want to hear your comment. What do you think are the real objectives behind Russia's renewed aggression, and how effective has NATO been responding so far? NATO had a recent meeting.
Well, Mr. Kanchan, the NATO countries did have a meeting, and what was discussed is all the NATO members will try to meet the allocation of 5% of each and every member country from their budget to be spent on military spending up until 2035. Not just that, you mentioned saying the US was to send Patriot missiles to Ukraine. That is the headline, but in my research and journalism, I would say the US is testing Patriot missiles and its effectiveness in the warfield. Now, one of them active warfield happens to be Ukraine and Russia. Of course, the two countries do have historical ties of being in one federation as well. And not only so, you must take the power dynamic between Russia, China and North Korea. These three countries do seem to be balancing or counterbalancing what the United States often impose amongst these countries. And not only so, right now the fighting is still escalatory, and almost 30% of the Ukrainian eastern side has been taken by the Russian forces as well. So still early to see. There is no stop to this war. Of course, Donald Trump said 50 days, which would nearby the first week of September. And also, you know, the General Assembly, UN General Assembly is set to be around that date. So maybe he's trying to stop this war before such an assembly can take place.
So I want to pick one very dangerous, I would call it very dangerous question. Mr. Norman, would you please respond our international commentator? He is assuming that this patriotic missile is going to be tested by Ukrainians to the Russians. What is your comment on that? Because as per his research, he said he never seen Patriot missiles is already tested in any areas. How do you see this, his comment? I think it's a very important question.
Yes, it's a very, very important question. I'm going to address Russia, the perception on Russia. So why is Russia doing this? Why do they want a prolonged war? Why are we supplying NATO now with weapons to help Ukraine? The whole point is right now, first thing, Russia want to, as you see, you're going to see a more aggressive move towards to project power. They want to project power and also to counter NATO. They want to let NATO know that, we're not going to be concerned about your threats, your presence. We're going to do what we need to do. And also they want to basically assert itself as a global power. That's what Russia's goal is, to do this. However, NATO has a serious situation they have to look at. Do we continue our policy on a defense-only type of group, or do we take aggressive, more assertive measures? History has shown that NATO is more of a defense versus a enforcement type of policy system. We have to understand that these dynamics are working and moving around every single day. It's changing what's going on. Russia wants to continue. They see no reason to stop their aggression. They're almost at the finish line. Basically, they say, hey, I can see the finish line. We're just going to let this thing wear itself out, and we're going to eventually prevail.
Mr. Norman says President Trump wants to see the finish line. Yes, we have witnessed finish line in India-Pakistan issue. We have seen the finish line in US dropped bomb in Iran. But we didn't see the finish line in Israel and Gaza. IDF is killing every day. They are bombing on the humanitarian aid center. Dr. Milon, as a politician, as a citizen, as a civilized person, how do you see? Is it a final plan to execute, to clean the Palestinian people from that their residence?
Well, the cleansing operation is going by Israel is not acceptable by the community of the whole world as well as UN. First of all, I believe UN should take more initiative and talk about it. Secondly, Trump and Netanyahu, the meeting had in Washington thrice last week, and there was no conclusive statement done there. Rather than that, Netanyahu proposed that he must get a Nobel Prize on Peace, and when we see 58,000 Palestinians are dying and the relief work is not working, and the military interventions of the Israeli is going on and on and on. In this case, Iran was involved with Israel, the war we had seen, and there we saw that Israel was begging to...
Sir, just 30 seconds interruption. Iran was not involved. Israel has put bomb on Iran and Iran retaliated.
And then Israel was begged for ceasefire. You see, here we can calculate how the Middle East will work. Iran is not going to give up, even though they have few people died, the high personnel, but still they are there. And the nuclear weapons making that process has been stopped, and Iran is wishing to do their own way to threat the Israel. In this case, I believe this war is not going to end it unless United States and Israel jointly goes for ceasefire and stop genociding. In the meantime, you know, everybody does the same thing. Like in Ukraine war, Putin wants to stay in power, so he wants to have some war with the other countries and domestic all the problem shut down right away. At the same way, Netanyahu, he wants to have this problem with Israel and Palestine, then he can stay in power. As you know, he is convicted from the International Criminal Court of Justice. So this is another politics going on there. So it will continue. But in the meantime, the world peoples are so much aware of it, and the United Nations, of course, the veto power is only the 5 nations. It should be increases, more liberalize this kind of power veto. So their United Nations should take a strong stance for ceasefire. I believe then something will work out.
Sir, Dr. Milon says United Nations should take a strong stand on this particular. I just give you one news. The Gaza war has now taken over 58,000 lives according to the reports, with Iran's president even injured during an Israeli strike. How close are we to a wider regional war? On the other side, given Iran's depending involvement, is there any credible path to de-escalation in the Israel and Gaza war, because Iran has indirect involvement because Iran has proxy fighters, Houthi, Hezbollah, Hamas, and are we heading toward a larger Middle East confrontation because United States is quite strong?
Well, thank you, Mr. Kanchan. Let me add on here that the 12-day war that we covered some days ago, this was only the starting or only the beginning of a further larger escalation in the coming days. I really hope that we don't get to see such an escalation. However, let me give you a breaking news in terms of the Gaza and Israel issue. Officials from 30 countries are set to meet in Colombia to halt this Gaza war. It will be a 2-day event, and it's convened by the Hague Group, co-chaired by Colombia and South Africa. Francesca Albanese, UN Special Rapporteur on the Palestinian territories, will preside over the news conference later today. So we now see a drastic meeting taking place between the 30 nations will be there. Condemnation of the Gaza escalation will definitely be on the agenda. So it's not just the UN, as you said, trying to stop this issue. Other entities are now coming together to stop this gruesome war. Of course, the death toll now is arriving at 58,000, and this number is growing every day. Even on the show, we started with 54,000 casualties, and that number has now arrived at 58,000. So let me just also add on to the fact about Iran. You said in the latest, Mr. Abbas Araghchi, Iran's foreign minister, he had said that he is willing to re-engage in nuclear talks with the US if there were assurances of no more attacks against Iran. And not only so, he had mentioned saying about the IAEA, which he said has not stopped but will take a new form. So this is another part of the Iranian government to understand what kind of intentions the IAEA actually has on its programs.
Thank you very much. I was supposed to go to the break, but as you raised the engagement of IAEA and Iran's foreign minister's proposal to United States, I must take a answer from Mr. Norman from Washington. Mr. Norman, you are hearing what our international affairs commentator says in the breaking news, that IAEA's engagement with Iran is going to be stopped and Iran is not going to cooperate anymore. What would be the next?
Hello?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Before the break, our international affairs commentator raised a question that why Iranian foreign minister says that he is ready to negotiate with United States but non-cooperation with IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, but insist no aggression guarantees. Mr. Norman.
Yes, the proposal to deal directly with the United States is very unique. It's more of a like a deal. I feel like there's a deal. Is trying to they're trying to strike a deal between the two to not include the whole international market and what's going on. And with that said, the oversight will be limited, if any, and it would be just basically a relationship they have with the two countries. I don't feel that this is appropriate. I think we need oversight, we need compliance issues, and we need a system where we can enforce it.
So, Mr. Norman, we'll be coming back to you. Please stay on the line. We want to look into China issue. You know, China and Indo-Pacific is becoming a big issue. China's endorsement of a Southeast Asia nuclear free zone. So, let me repeat the word Southeast Asia nuclear free zone, but China itself a nuclear nation, atomic nation. Do you see this genuine diplomacy or a strategic maneuver amid US-China competition in the Indo-Pacific? I want to do this question directly to you, Panthu sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kanchan. It will take me quite some time if I take on all the topics related to China. However, one of those topics, as you mentioned, is their corridor, Southeast Asia, to have a nuclear-free zone. Of course, Australian PM is now in China meeting the Chinese Premier Li Qiang and also President Xi Jinping as well. And the purpose of this visit by Australia was to revive and expand economic ties, trade and tourism. And they signed MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, between Tourism Australia and China's Trip.com. So this Australia understands the potential China has over Asia and of course Southeast Asia as well. And of course China is now seen to be a new global power in comparison with the US. Of course, I also mentioned AUKUS to you before, which is a trilateral security partnership between Australia, UK and the United States, and it's intended to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific that's secure and stable. Of course, we see the two sides trying to beef it out between them. We know that China has military advancements even out in the South China Sea, in the Spratly Islands. They have developed those places to be military infrastructure belonging to the People's Liberation Navy as well, the PLN effectively. So one must understand that China wants a world where openness and trade is booming and not testing of weapons, and dependency on weapons is not the issue of the hour as well.
Very well explained. As Dr. Milan was engaged into Bangladeshi politics and he is always concerned about the interest of Bangladesh, I want to align a question regarding this particular issue, but align with Bangladesh. How should Bangladesh and other Bay of Bengal nations navigate their relationships with China as tensions rise in the South China Sea and Taiwan Strait? But Bangladesh is going to be affected some way, somehow, because we are in the Chinese, that chain line.
Well, my simple answer is don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Bangladesh diplomacy should be evenly distributed among China, India, also with the United States. We cannot go straight line to have someone in the positive, someone in the negative. So that's my straight answer to this regards.
Do you advise for security issues we should have a very strong tie with West, I mean NATO and United States? I mean unipolar power, and do you think we should be also progressive about the trading with China?
Well, it should be balanced, not imbalanced. You see, the big project Chinese are investing, and eventually what you see had happened in Sri Lanka. So we don't want that kind of huge investment in Bangladesh infrastructure or building port or anything, and we'll take the burden of the paying off loans. So it should be balanced.
I like to word balanced diplomacy. Balanced diplomacy should be in 21st century, because if you put all your eggs, according to you, it will be dangerous. You have to lose everything. Sir, I want to do one more question to
Sure.
you regarding this issue. Without China, business is impossible. Without China, producing RMG is impossible. What do you think? Government should put high priority concentration on this China issue right this moment to create a very green channel with China to continue our business, production business, especially I mean RMG and other raw materials. On the other side, should we do a high priority concentration with Washington to negotiate tariffs because it will kill us?
Well, I said earlier, and Norman said it, it is opportunity. So first of all, I consider it as a threat. So if we cannot import the materials from China, from where we'll get it? Let's say the United States is agreed to export their cotton to Bangladesh, tariff is zero. So in this case, we can take the raw materials and build our textile industries and be stand on our own feet and make ready-made garments and export it. Because if we go more linear to China, United States is not going to like it. As I said, they have other mission also, Indo-Pacific, or you can buy the Boeing instead of Airbus. You remember Bangladesh was ready to buy Airbus, but government to government deals and arms, weapons. What America wants? America wants that the gap should be filled up. At the same time, we should not give upper hand to China. So if you want to go with the West, you have to look their interest also. So that's the reason I say it is the balanced politics should be there. Otherwise, we are in deep trouble.
Right, sir. Sir, imbalanced politics also started from Washington. I can give you one example. President Donald Trump in Hague on 24th June says 5% GDP from the NATO members or European members has to pay. Now, what happens? He is again going to put the tariffs on the European allies also. News says with NATO's new goal of 5% GDP military spending and the EU's struggle to counter US tariffs, is Europe facing a strategic identity crisis, Mr. Norman? How might Europe respond to Donald Trump if Donald Trump returns to power with an even more unrealistic approach to NATO and global security? Sir, I want to do this question you first.
Thank you, Mr. Kanchan. Well, first of all, the allies weren't spared. You look at South Korea and Japan, even they had to be facing the burden of this tariff war. But remotely speaking, we were talking about China. So in any country who has benefited, whether monetarily or has any kind of strengthening strategic developments with China, America does take notice. And you see earlier this week, we've seen Donald Trump imposing tariff to various Asian nations, but no news agency has still reported anything in terms with China. So definitely other Asian countries will definitely be impacted. But as per your question, we looked at the European Union nations as well. If you look at the euro, it's a currency that is shared amongst a wide range of countries in the European bloc. And they know that Donald Trump is an ally for the European countries, and they are definitely concerned in what kind of tariff game is playing, America is playing with them. But even if you look at Latin America, Brazil is a member of the BRICS, and definitely this time they hosted the BRICS leaders as well. Donald Trump didn't see this as an advantage, or didn't take any advantage of this, as he supports Jair Bolsonaro, the opposition of the current government there. And he had blatantly said, we will slam Brazil with 50% tariff. And this is how domestic destabilization may take place in the upcoming days as well. And of course, European leadership is definitely taking note.
Sir, one short question for you, and I have a very short time. Don't you think Donald Trump, a very hot-minded person, is volatile? He is doing volatile situation in war situation, I mean war diplomacy as well as trade diplomacy. Do you think it? Do you feel it?
He's trying to pull every country by the strings, and what he's doing is it's creating strategic alliances between that entire group of countries that he's bullying, whether it be with weapons, whether it be with trade, and whether anything else they're trying to pull off. But if you look at the rhetoric over the last 6 months, America is facing a lot of reputational crisis due to Donald Trump's such practices as well.
Thank you, sir. I just want to look at South Asia. There is something new happening, sir. India's rising defense collaborations with Western powers are very notable in recent days. How should smaller South Asian nations, even like Bangladesh, position themselves in this evolving security new architecture?
Well, the way he's looking, but I don't think that it is going to be our every threat. He already lost his neighbors' politics. Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Nepal and Bangladesh.
Pakistan, Afghanistan, China.
Afghanistan, China. So nothing is left in his neighbor. So what is going to do? He has to go other. So that's how he is trying to push off himself that he is going to be another great hero instead of his losing control in his neighbor. And even though he is losing control in his country also, like Pakistan and India war, we had seen that how he tried to go for ceasefire. So this is not a big issue for us. He has to do something. He cannot sit idle. So he is now trying to extend his hand with Afghanistan, as I see in the new news media is coming up. But why? So that question might be come up. But eventually his diplomacy is going to be narrow. His world is getting smaller. And in this regards is not doing great, as I see
So
right
you are
now.
not upset on that?
Not at all.
Sir, we'll definitely discuss more. Floods in India, political tensions in Pakistan, economic stress in Sri Lanka continue to affect the region. Is there any hope for SAARC to become effective again as a regional forum? This question I want to do for both of you gentlemen. First, Shamsul Alam Panthu.
Well, of course, we don't see that much of an economical or an environmental disaster happening in this region except for torrential flooding and rain. Of course, our country is getting brazen up by several states facing the monsoon season's worst. So you mentioned about SAARC. Of course, now India has its policies with its neighbors, and it's not looking forward to a neighborhood first policy. In order for India to regain popularity in its neighborhood, they must assign someone who will definitely look at the beneficial relationship between one of their own neighborhoods as well. And of course, you do know about the media trial that we faced as a country towards India in the last 10 months. They couldn't have been much harsher. So it's been quite a harsh time with them in terms of diplomacy. And of course, you mentioned SAARC, and I would like to see some kind of regional cooperation. If it's not branded as SAARC, should be branded as something else. But the West is West, the US, the allies, the European Union and everyone else, even Africa, is taking notice of the tensions that all of India's neighborhood is having with India as well, irrespectively.
Sir, I said that I will ask the same questions to you. Do you see any hope of Ray in SAARC?
You see, the basic background for regional cooperation based on the cooperation among the countries in South Asia. Well, we had seen this thing in LAFTA, Latin American, SHAFTA, South American. We have seen this kind of organization works. But here it's frozen from 2014. India doesn't want it, as I understand. So we have to go for new alliances, BIMSTEC, then ASEAN. There's a lot of organization here. We have to grow another organization instead of SAARC, because India is not totally interested to do it from 2014. But it's very important for us. You mentioned about the flood. We had an environmental committee, India and Bangladesh and other SAARC states, and they will announce us earlier when the flood will coming to Bangladesh 15 days ahead. That's kind of cooperation, and that kind of agreement was done during the BNP government in the year 2001 to 2006. As if I remember 2004, I believe there was a SAARC conference, and I was headed the environmental case. And I had seen that. But India doesn't follow that thing. Like United States, they don't go by the rules because they are the big power. India is the same way. They don't follow us. They close our rivers. They open our rivers. They are upper riparian.
Sir, is it true that your direct answer would be India is not showing interest to revive SAARC?
Not at all.
Let us come back to our domestic issues, because our country is heading into democratic process. Interim government already said that they are going to conduct the election, but they have some reform works, they have some judiciary jobs. My question is very direct, sir. Do you think 1,400 young boys and girls gave their life, sacrificed their lives just for an election?
No, it's not for election. You see, July 36 gave us, who doesn't have the vision, that we got the vision back. Those who are deaf, they can hear now. Those who cannot open the mouth, they can talk now. So July 36 will be in our memory years after years. It will never diminish from our mind. Keeping this thing in our mind, yes, not only for election, but how other things you can change the politics without having the fair election. Just refresh your mind. If there is an election in 2014 or 2018 or 2024, the regime will be shifted and the government will be changes and people will be more democratized. In this case, there was no election, and then the fascist government started ruling the country. So we need a process to start to re-establish our country, and that should be done in the election. That's the reason election is very important. You see, currently this government is failed to control law and order situation right now. In other sectors also they are not doing great, except the financial sector. Well, in this case, if we allow them to stay more, and it's rolling more, it's like a snowball. If you stand on the top of a hill and take a snow and throw it, it starts rolling. So now, what would be happen? Just close your eyes. 11 months had passed and the government is not doing well. So in this case, if we allow them continue there, they are not efficient to continue the government. In this case, it's better for everybody, for them, for the citizens of the Bangladesh, at the earlier election. Think about it. If they give an election 2 months from today, we are hoping the investor will come, the country will run in the democratic way, people will have the choice to vote for it. So what else are the solution without election? Is there any solution? If they would have run better way, then we could say they give them few more days time, but they are not running good. So my comment, that's the only solution.
Politician says election is the solution, but the running government, interim government, they says without the reforms, the election will be meaningless. Same fascist will again come. As a young generation star, what would be your short comment?
Short comment would be, let's take in to what's actually happened in reality. Sir was mentioning about the law and order situation. Look, the country needs to be economically prosperous. We must do well in the international stage. And without members of parliament, representatives of communities sitting in that parliament discussing what should be done for the future of the country, up until that point, we are not stable.
So last question for you, answer would be yes or no. Do you think the election is going to be held in time declared by the government and demanded by the politicians?
Well, they must listen to the people and they must keep their promise what they say to the nation.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was our discussion today. We have discussed many issues. We have discussed the domestic issues as well. I'll see you tomorrow. Stay well, stay happy.